Hello and welcome to Spectrum TV News at 12. I am Francis Oyima Edet. It's a recap of major stories within the week. Let's take a look at the headlines. Federal government targets 100,000 displaced children in school feeding. Federal government to resume trial of detained terror suspects in 2 weeks. Plus, President Joe Biden and Xi Jinping agreed to restore military ties still at odds over Taiwan. We will bring you details of these stories and more in a moment. Many thanks for joining us. We begin our recap news with the news that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu has returned to Abuja from his one-week engagement in Saudi Arabia and Guinea-Bissau. Reports say the Boeing 737 jet conveying Tinubu and his entourage arrived at the presidential wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, minutes past 7 p.m. local time. Recall that Tinubu departed Abuja for Riyadh, the Saudi capital, on Thursday, November 9, 2023, to attend the Saudi Africa Summit, which was held the next day. While there, the president assured potential investors that their investments are safe in Nigeria. He promised these and recent bold economic reforms by his administration to remove wasteful subsidies on petroleum and merge the foreign exchange market, among other incentives, to improve the ease of doing business in Nigeria. Meanwhile, the Vice President Kashim Shettima says education and skill development are the answers to Nigeria's hunger and poverty. Shettima made the statement at a meeting with a group from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. The Vice President emphasized how climate change affects agricultural productivity and how vital it is to implement climate-smart farming practices in order to guarantee food security for Nigeria's expanding populace. He therefore pleaded with the foundation to establish a strategic alliance with the Nigerian government in order to boost the country's agricultural output, enhance nutrition, and fortify the educational system. Away from that, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on School Feeding, Dr. Yetunde Adeniji, has disclosed that the federal government plans to feed 100,000 displaced children in the north. Adeniji revealed the plan when her delegation sought the support of the Nasarawa State Governor Abdullahi Sule and the Emir of Bogu Kingdom, Mohammed Dantoro, to help facilitate the program during a familiarization tour. A presidential aide said the federal government plans to start with 5,000 of the displaced kids for the first phase of the feeding initiative, with the hope of increasing the number to 100,000 subsequently. This was disclosed in a statement issued in Abuja on Saturday by her media team. Away from that, the Attorney General of the Federation, AGF, and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, said that the federal government would resume the prosecution of detained terror suspects, including Boko Haram, in 2 weeks. Fagbemi said plans were in top gear to ensure a seamless process that will involve the combination of normal physical court trial process with virtual sittings. The AGF spoke in Abuja during the opening session of the 40th Technical Commission and Plenary Meeting of the Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, GIABA, an agency of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. Meanwhile, the federal government has announced plans to establish industrial hubs to accelerate job creation and address rising unemployment in the country. President Bola Tinubu disclosed this at the 55th International Conference of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management in Abuja with the theme Sustainable Human Resources, Business and National Development. The president, represented by the Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Nkiru Onyejocha, outlined the administration's commitment to steering Nigeria towards self-reliance and reducing dependency on others amid global challenges. He reiterated the federal government's commitment to end poverty, adding that the industrial hub was deeply intertwined with the government's focus on economic growth and job creation. In the meantime, the federal government has inaugurated a 10-man committee to strengthen the mechanism for full-scale and industrial production of salt and kaolin in the country. During the inauguration ceremony held at the headquarters of the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development in Abuja, the Permanent Secretary, Mary Ogbe, said the initiative to explore and exploit salt and kaolin aligns with the renewed hope agenda of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu-led administration. Ogbe urged the committee to come up with ordered recommendations that would assist the government in taking proactive measures to develop the sector. The Permanent Secretary gave a timeline on or before November 30, 2023 to the committee for the submission of its report, given the urgency of the assignment. Elsewhere, the federal government has said that in order to meet the needs of persons living with disabilities, PLWDs, heads of ministries, departments and agencies, MDAs, must set up disability desks and assign officials to staff them. Senior Special Assistant SSA to the President on Disability Matters, Mohammed Issa, made this known during a press conference in Abuja. Issa noted that his office would engage relevant stakeholders in the amendment of the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act 2018. He added that the office would also work towards evolving mechanisms for the amendment of the Act to comply with the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, UNCRPD, to remedy the various defects in the law. We move to the Red Chambers, where the Senate has confirmed the nomination of Aminu Maida for appointment as Executive Vice Chairman of the Nigerian Communications Commission (NCC) by President Bola Tinubu. This followed the adoption and approval of the recommendation of the Senate Committee on Communications, chaired by Senator Ikra Bilbis, by the Senate at plenary. Senator Bilbis, in his report, said that Maida met all the lawful and academic criteria to be appointed as NCC's boss. Meanwhile, Maina had, prior to his administration and nomination for appointment by President Tinubu, served as the Executive Director, Technology and Operations at Nigeria Interbank Settlement System PLC, NBSS. We move to the Green Chambers, where the chairman of the House Committee on Works and lawmaker representing Egbeda Onara Federal Constituency, Akin Alabi, has disclosed plans to visit and monitor ongoing road projects across the country. Speaking for the Alabi said the committee is committed to the betterment of the nation's road network and will start visiting major road projects to ascertain its current state. Reports say the road projects to be monitored span across the southwest, north central, southeast, south-south, northwest, and northeast respectively. Meanwhile, Alabi affirmed that the current administration hopes to see the process from beginning to the end. And away from that, the House of Representatives is reportedly furious over the absence of the service chiefs and the Inspector General of Police, Kaide Gbetekun, at an interactive session that was scheduled to hold within the course of the week. Recall that the House had last week scheduled a sectoral debate with the security chiefs, as it plans to do with all the sectors of the country, following a constitutional point of order by the Deputy Speaker, Benjamin Kalu. The House rejected the representation of the security heads and instead postponed the session. The engagement has been rescheduled to Tuesday next week, as the House insisted that the service chiefs must appear at the debate. In another development, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, has lamented that Nigeria has a shortfall of 669 local government areas yet to attain an open defecation-free status. UNICEF says it might be impossible to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 6 by 2030 if the government and relevant stakeholders in water, sanitation and hygiene and WASH do not mobilize to ensure that 774 local government areas of the country become open defecation-free. Dr. Clement Adams, the officer in charge of the UNICEF Bauchi Field Office, raised the concerns at a media dialogue in Azare, Bauchi State, to mark World Toilet Day. He congratulated the people of Katagum local government area in Bauchi State for becoming the 105th local government area in the country to be certified open defecation-free. He observed that the majority of the disease that afflicts people can be traced to poor sanitation, saying that not having enough toilets is endangering both humans and the environment, and that the statistics is not encouraging. In a separate development, the Director General of the National Youth Service Corps NYSC, Brigadier General Yeshua Ahmed, has warned Corps members to avoid every form of misconduct that may lead them into trouble during their service year. Ahmed also warned that violators of NYSC bylaws and other laws of the country would be sanctioned appropriately. A Director General stated this in his address to Corps members during his visit to NYSC Kano State Orientation Camp in Kosala Dam, Karaye and Katsina State Orientation Camp. While congratulating them on the successful completion of their courses of study, he added that improper dressing in NYSC uniforms attracts sanctions. To the judiciary now, where lists of 22 justices of the Court of Appeal have been nominated by the Federal Judicial Service Commission FJSC for elevation to the Supreme Court. The list has been sent to the National Judicial Council NJC. The names of the nominees who hail from various regions in the country were revealed in an FJSC document. According to reports, the North Central region has 6 nominees, while the Southwest and South-South regions have 2 nominees each. The Southeast region also have 6 nominees, and the Northeast has 2 nominees. The development is coming after the retirement of Justices Amina Ogi and Mohammed Datija, which left the Supreme Court with only 10 serving justices. Meanwhile, the Court of Appeal in Abuja has declared the Zamfara State governorship election as inconclusive. The court also ordered rerun in 3 local government areas. The local government areas are Maradun, Bekin Magaji, and Bokun. It held that the Zamfara State Election Petitions Tribunal did not consider the evidence provided by the appellant, All Progressives Congress APC. The court also dismissed the results provided by the APC and the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC for Maradun local government area. Meanwhile, the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja has nullified the election of Governor Abba Yusuf of Kano State. Reports say the court has affirmed the tribunal judgment which declared the All Progressives Congress candidate Nasiru Gawuna winner of the governorship election. The tribunal, led by Justice Oluyemi Osadebe, had nullified the election of Governor Abba Yusuf by declaring 165,663 of his votes invalid. Meanwhile, the court said the votes were invalid because they were not signed or stamped by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. Elsewhere, the National Industrial Court of Nigeria sitting in Ibadan, Oyo State, has restrained the Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke from removing the State Chief Judge Adepele Ojo and Michael Obidiya as the Secretary of the State Judicial Council Service Commission. The court gave the orders following 2 separate suits filed by Ojo and Obidiya through their counsel, Oladipo Oloshokwe. Ojo, in a suit filed by her counsel, had dragged Adeleke before the court and joined in the matter Osun State Attorney General, Osun State Judicial Service Commission, and the State Accountant General. The claimant, in a motion ex parte dated November 15, 2023, prayed the court for an order of interim injunction restraining the defendants from removing, reversing, or terminating her appointment and conditions of service as the Chief Judge of Osun State, including but not limited to salaries and other pecuniary benefits, pending the determination of the interlocutory application. Meanwhile, despite an order of the National Industrial Court restraining Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke from removing or interfering with the judiciary, the governor has approved the suspension of the Chief Judge, Justice Oyebola Ojo. A statement issued by the governor's spokesperson, Olawale Rashid, stated that the governor approved the resolution of the House of Assembly asking the Chief Judge to step aside over the allegation of misconduct. And still to come in the news, U.S. jobless claims rises to 3-month high. To stay with us.
55,000.
Every day marks a day of significance.
That in view of the apology tendered by this former minister who had earlier been cleared by this August Assembly,
as we face critical issues, developments and events which shape our social and political landscape here in Nigeria and beyond. Political Spectrum is a program specially designed to help make sense of all the moving parts of developments and occurrences in our nation's polity and political economy.
There is nothing wrong with Nigeria, but there's everything wrong.
The educational history of public figures holds significance beyond mere biographical details.
From executive, legislative and judicial developments at national and subnational levels to international diplomacy and relations.
Join us for exclusive interviews with key political figures, expert opinions, analysts, thought-provoking conversations for and against, shedding light on the major issues that matter. We will always keep you updated on the most factual, smartest and unbiased reportage.
Stay tuned to Political Spectrum. Political Spectrum. All sides matter at the round table. Political Spectrum. Exclusive to Spectrum Television.
Many thanks for staying with us, and now to the rest of the news stories. We move to Africa, where the UN Security Council has extended the mandate for another 12 months of the UN peacekeeping mission in the Central African Republic known as MINUSCA. Reports say 14 of the 15 council members voted on Wednesday to renew the mission, asking it to continue advancing reconciliation and durable peace through political, security and institutional means. MINUSCA was also urged to protect human rights and assist in preparation for local elections in 2024 and 2025. Russia abstained from the vote after its representatives said the resolution to extend the mandate contained some elements which did not reflect the current situation in the country. Moscow maintains close ties with the KAR, and the influence of people believed to be from the Wagner mercenary group is perceptible in the government's fight against local rebels. Meanwhile, the Russian and Central African forces have been accused of atrocities and human rights violations in their operations. The UN has maintained its peacekeeping mission in the Central African Republic since 2014, a year after a civil war plunged the country into political instability. Away from that, the row over the Rwanda plan is a reminder of two fundamentals. Firstly, the geography of power in the democracy. Across Parliament Square, from the Commons and the Lords stands the Supreme Court. Reports say the power of the lawmaker stood on one side of the grass, while the power of the rule of law stood on the other, as the contemporary challenge to richer countries globally of illegal migration. Meanwhile, Niger's military junta chief, who came to power in a July coup, officially set up within the course of the week an anti-corruption commission and a state court. State TV broadcast live the two ceremonies to formally establish the transition bodies. Members of the court and commission, two new bodies sworn in oath in front of new strongman General Abdul Rahman Tiani in his first public appearance since leading the July 26 ousting of democratically elected President Mohamed Bazoum. Meanwhile, military chiefs, government members, traditional chiefs, religious figures and foreign diplomats attended the inaugurations in the capital, Niamey. In the meantime, Malawi's President Lazarus Chakwera has suspended with immediate effect all international travel involving himself and all government officials. He has also ordered all ministers currently outside the country to return home. Speaking in a televised address, Chakwera also announced restriction on local travel and a reduction by half of the fuel allocation to cabinet ministers and senior government officials. The president said the measures will be in place until the end of the financial year next March. Still in Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa says his country has referred Israel's government to the International Criminal Court (ICC) over his actions in the Gaza conflict. Ramaphosa noted that South Africa did not condone Hamas's earlier attack on Israel, but were opposed to Israel's ongoing actions, which the country believes warrants investigations by the ICC. Reports say South Africa has been one of the most vocal supporters of Palestinians in the ongoing conflict with Israel. Meanwhile, two journalists in Togo have been sent to prison for defaming a government minister on social media. Newspaper editor Loic Lawson and freelance reporter Anani Soso had accused the housing minister of failing to disclose the full details of a burglary at his home. They said the politician reported the crime to the police but did not declare that more than $600,000 in cash was stolen. He subsequently took legal actions against them. Meanwhile, the media watchdog Reporters Without Border has called for the pair's immediate release. Elsewhere, a court in Zimbabwe has ordered a prominent businesswoman to pay a fine of $5,000 for trying to smuggle gold worth more than $330,000 out of the country in a handbag. Henrietta Rushwaya, the president of the Zimbabwe Miners Federation, was also given a suspended 18-month sentence. In the traditions of the Shona ethnic group, she is considered a niece of President Emerson Mnangagwa, but they are not related by blood. Rushwaya, a strong supporter of the ruling party, was caught with gold bars weighing 6 kilograms at the main international airport in the capital, Harare, in 2020 as she was about to fly to the United Arab Emirates. She did not have an export permit at the time. She said she had accidentally picked up the wrong handbag. The gold has been forfeited to the state. On the foreign scene, U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping agreed to restore military communications at their first summit in a year, even as Biden went off script by saying he still considered Xi a dictator. According to reports, the leaders shook hands and strolled in a garden at a historic California estate during 4-hour talks aimed at preventing growing tensions between the world's largest economies from spiraling into conflict. They also agreed that China would crack down on the production of ingredients for the drug fentanyl, responsible for a deadly epidemic of opioid abuse in the United States. But Xi and Biden remained far apart on the wider flashpoint of Taiwan, with the Chinese president telling his U.S. counterpart to stop arming the island and saying that reunification was unstoppable. Meanwhile, Beijing claims sovereignty over the self-ruling democracy and has not ruled out seizing it by force. Similarly, the U.S. Congress passed a stopgap funding bill to help federal agencies running for another 2 months and avert a painful holiday season government shutdown, although the deal leaves out aid to war-torn Ukraine and Israel requested by President Joe Biden. 3 days before the Friday night deadline, the Senate voted to keep the lights on through mid-January with a resolution that had advanced from the House of Representatives during a week of high-stakes brinkmanship on Capitol Hill. Reports say the last-stage continuing resolution CR was pitched by new House Speaker Mike Johnson as more than 1 million public workers looked set to be sent home unpaid ahead of next Thursday. Thousands Thanksgiving holidays and pending government functions, from national parks and air traffic control to the federal policymaker. Still on the foreign scene, new Foreign Secretary David Cameron has made his first working visit to Ukraine, meeting President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv. Cameron reiterated the UK's support for Ukraine, promising it would be there for however long it takes. He promised to continue Britain's moral support, the diplomatic, economic, but above all, military support. Elsewhere, the Israeli Defense Forces IDF has said that the force has taken operational control of the harbor in Gaza City, which is the center of the Strip's fleet of fishing vessels. In a statement, the IDF said the harbor had also been used as a training facility for Hamas fighters. The statement added that the Israeli forces destroyed 10 tunnel shafts as part of the operations. In a related development, Gaza's main telecommunications companies, Pantel and Jawal, today, within the course of the week, said in a statement that telecom services in the Gaza Strip went down, as all energy sources sustaining the network have been depleted. The announcement came after the Israeli army said its troops had taken operational control of the port of Gaza City in the territory's north, showing at least a dozen tanks and groups of soldiers massed on the coast near Gaza City. Still on the foreign scene, after weeks of haggling, Socialist leader Pedro Sanchez has clinched a vote in Parliament to lead Spain for another term as Prime Minister. Reports say he secured a 4-seat majority in the 350-seat chamber after sealing an amnesty deal for Catalans involved in a failed bid to secede from Spain. And while Sanchez told members of Parliament that the amnesty deal would help heal wounds. And while 4 people, including 2 pilots, were killed in Indonesia when 2 military aircraft crashed into a mountainside during training, reports say 2 Embraer Super Tucano planes took off from the East Java city of Malang before losing contact half an hour later during regular formation training. It said the 2 pilots and 2 co-pilots were found after information from the public about where their planes had crashed. They were found on a mountainside near Mountain Bromo in East Java. on Indonesia's most populous island, and the planes were believed to have hit a steep incline. Meanwhile, investigators are not likely to reach the site when they will analyze the flight recorders and or the data from the planes anytime soon. On a business news, the number of Americans filing new claims for unemployment benefits increased to a 3-month high last week, suggesting that labor market conditions continue to ease, which could help the Federal Reserve's fight against inflation. The number of people receiving benefits after an initial week of aid, a proxy for hiring, increased 32,000 to 1,865 million during the week ending November 4th, the highest level since November 2021. The claims report showed the so-called continuing claims have increased since mid-September. Most economies have attributed the rise to difficulties adjusting the data for seasonal fluctuations rather than a material change in the labor market. They expect these to be ignored and ironed out when the government revisits the data next spring. Meanwhile, the Consul General, Will Stevens, has disclosed that over 60% of venture capital funding for Nigerian startups comes from the United States. According to him, 80% of Nigerian startups are incorporated in the U.S. The Consul General stated these in his keynote address at the Global Tech Africa Conference held in Lagos on Friday. He noted that while there has been a decline in VC funding this year, U.S. investors like Techstars, Y Combinator, and 500 have closed over 100 major deals within the first 9 months of the year. Meanwhile, the Central Bank of Nigeria has insisted its monetary policy reform had impacted a declaration of prices in the country despite the rising inflation rate. Reports say that Nigeria's October inflation, which stood at 27.33%, represents an 18-year high. The Apex Bank's Director of Corporate Communications, Issa Abdul Momen, while reacting to the National Bureau of Statistics' October inflation figures, said the rate showed that money market reforms are gradually impacting the economy. According to him, the low increase in the average price level in October indicates that CBN's monetary policy stands to tighten and its money market reforms were yielding the desired effects. He attributed the moderation in the month-on-month changes in food prices and core consumer basket components to banks' reforms in the money market and relative stability in the foreign exchange market. According to an NBS report, Nigeria's food inflation rate increased to 31.52% in October from 30.64% in September 2023. Similarly, the Bureau said the cost of transportation has increased to nearly 100% since the introduction of fuel subsidy removal in June. And still to come in the news, Port Harcourt hosts NBBF Final 4 on November 22nd. To stay with us.
Nigerian broadcast and entertainment, sports on the go, and news around the world. Watch Spectrum TV on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and free-to-air frequency 12733. Visit our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding you, your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Many thanks for staying with us, and now to the concluding part of the news stories. In Hull, the Nigerian Medical Association, NMA, Enugu State Chapter, has threatened to down tolls if the state government and security agencies fail to address the rising trend of kidnapping of health workers in the state. According to NMA, no fewer than 10 health workers had fallen victim to kidnap, particularly from their workplaces in the past 2 months. In a communique signed by the state chairman of NMA, Dr. Celestine Onwoke, and General Secretary Dr. Sunday Okafor, the union, after an emergency general meeting EGM, resolved to notify the state government and all security agencies in the state that the association will closely monitor the trend and implementation of their resolutions, including the earlier advance protest letters activated. Still in health, United Nations has entered into a partnership with the federal government to develop a national disaster risk reduction action plan for Nigeria. The United Nations Development Programme Sahel Resilience Project Manager in Nigeria, Rashmi Tikitil, made the announcement in Abuja at the workshop on the development of a National Disaster Risk Reduction Strategic Action Plan 2023 to 2030 for Nigeria. According to Thicketill, Nigeria has experienced 440 disasters with several catastrophic floods leading to the tragic loss of lives and economic loss across the country. Meanwhile, pulmonologists have said that air pollution and malnutrition must be checked to curb Nigeria's high pneumonia deaths, especially among children and the elderly. The experts, in separate interviews with newsmen, explained that pneumonia is an infectious disease that can be caused by bacteria, fungi, or viruses and affects the air sac in the lungs. They noted that environmental factors, including indoor air pollution from unclean cooking sources, secondhand smoking, and overcrowding, further increase the risks of pneumonia in people of all ages. The physicians added that pneumonia was particularly common amongst neonates, children, and the elderly due to their undeveloped and waning immunity. We move to sports, where Nigeria Basketball Federation (NBBF) has announced Port Harcourt, Rivers State, as the venue for the 2023 Nigeria Premier Basket League Final Four. The quartet of hosts Rivers Hoppers, Nigeria Customs, Boko Community Chiefs and Hubs, and Reed will slug it out for the title in Port Harcourt from November 22 to 26 in a round-robin format after emerging out of their conferences. The games will start on the 23rd of November. The winner after the round-robin games will qualify to represent Nigeria in the 2024 African Basketball League BAL. Still in sports, Rafael Nadal said he is making good progress as he returns from a long injury layoff and is hopeful of a return to tennis in 2024. Reports say, having not played since the Australian Open in January, the 22-time Grand Slam champion started training a few weeks ago following an operation on his iliopsoas in June. Meanwhile, Nadal is confident of a return now, but that was not always the case. While return to tennis is the immediate goal, Nadal is tempering expectations for what happened when he eventually gets back on court. Finally, in sports, Guadro Camavinga will left France on Thursday to return to Madrid after picking up a knee injury in training on Wednesday. The Real Madrid midfielder will undergo scans and medical tests at the club's Valdebidas training complex to discover the extent of his injury. Camavinga, 21, hurt his knee after a clash with Paris Saint-Germain forward Ousmane Dembele during a small practice match and didn't finish the training session. On our entertainment news, famous singer and entrepreneur Oluwatosin Oluwole Ajibade, also known as Mr. Easy, has revealed his love language. According to the Zagadat Capital boss, credit alert is his love language. He disclosed this in a recent interview with newsmen in Lagos. Speaking on his love experience, Mr. Easy said he used to mistake being financially present with physical presence because his dad was responsible despite not being a present parent due to the nature of his job. He said his childhood experience had made credit alert his love language. Still on entertainment news, Jada Pinkett Smith has spoken in defense of her estranged husband Will Smith, stressing that they will be suing brother Bilal, who levied sex allegations against him. Jada revealed this in an interview where she aired her standpoint regarding the claims by Bilal, who claimed that he once walked in on Will Smith and his friend Dwayne Martin having anal sex. She stated that they will definitely be taking legal actions against him for his malicious statements. Pinkett Smith added that Bilal once tried to extort them for some money on the grounds. Meanwhile, American hip-hop legend Calvin Cottazar Brothers Jr., popularly known as Snoop Dogg, has quit smoking. A veteran rapper said he decided to give up the addiction after much consideration and conversation with his family. He announced this in a statement shared via his X, formerly Twitter, handle within the course of the week. Finally, on a recap news, Oscars organizers have said that American comedian Jimmy Kimmel is returning again to host the Oscars for a fourth time. According to the organizers, Kimmel will preside over Hollywood's biggest award show for the second consecutive year after television ratings rebounded at last year's well-reviewed ceremony. The 96 Oscars will be held on March 10, 2024 at the Dolby Theatre in Hollywood. And that's all we have for you on the news, recap news stories. Many thanks for joining us and do enjoy the rest of your weekend.